Hey everybody, I wanted to give you an example of how I turned a seller into my private lender. Now, how many of you have missed out on deals because you didn't have the funding lined up? It's probably happened to all of us at some point. I will say that turning the seller into my private lender was by far the biggest thing that helped launch my real estate investing business in the early stages. Wholesaling was a great way to start, but when I didn't have a buyer lined up, or when the numbers didn't work for that type of transaction, then I was out. So creative real estate, other ways of transacting the deal has made me a lot of money. So I'll give you an example of one deal I turned the seller into my private lender. And I say this because everybody wants all cash, retail value, and close in a week, right? So in this market, sometimes you get that, but I had a seller call me. It was an $80,000 house, cheap house, 80,000 ARV, and he was asking something like 35, I don't remember, 35,000 I'm gonna say. So I said, if I pay you all cash and close whenever you want, what's the least you'll take? He said, a lower number. I said, it's the best you can do. He wound up at $28,000. So I knew at the time, this was in the very early stages of my real estate investing, that I didn't have the funding lined up. And I could wholesale the deal, right? Contracted at 28, it's worth 80, probably flip it, get a quick $10,000 to $12,000. But I had learned a little bit about creative real estate. I wanted to give it a shot. So what did I do? I told the seller, I said, after I negotiated him down to 28, knew the numbers were potentially good for a wholesale. So I went on out to the house in that case, and I said, you say you want 28 cash. What if I was willing to give you 31,000? And he looked at me. Who's this guy negotiating against himself? He's like, okay. I said, instead of 31, instead of 28 cash now, I would give you 31 cash when I resell the property. I'll put some work into it, put it up and sell the property. So how long would that take? And I said, well, normally would do something like a 12-month on a deal like that. Now, notice, I did not call this an owner finance deal, although that's technically what it is, because an owner finance deal, we never do less than, almost never less than 5 years unless there's some special surroundings. But normally we get 10, 15, or even 30 years. Okay, I would never go 12 months on an owner finance deal. But this deal worked as cash, so why not get the seller to be my private lender? So he said, well, I'll give you 9 months. Knew the area, it's a fast selling area, and no, it's not personally guaranteed debt, and there was no interest. We didn't, and so I said, we can make that work. And I said, I'll be paying all closing. I'll give you $31,000. He goes, well, how much do you put down at close before I got there, right? He said, how much do you put down at close? I said, usually nothing. And I shut up. And he said, oh, that wouldn't work for me. And I said, okay, giving you additional money on top of 28 so that you, because of this, what are you thinking? And he said, you're paying closing? I said, yes. He said, well, did you give me 2,000? I said, oh man. I said, we got to work on this place, right? He said, yeah, what are you thinking? I said, well, I'm thinking 0, but I'll meet you halfway. I'll pay closing and give you 1,000 at closing. He said, done. We shook hands, and he signed the purchase and sale agreement there, and we bought a house with $1,000, turning the seller into our private lender. All right? Now that is something that's very cool, because now you have another tool in your tool belt, even if you're familiar with owner finance, even if you're familiar with cash deals or wholesaling, to be able to potentially do a real estate deal, potentially do a deal where you have this person to be your private lender. And in this case, it was 0% interest for that period, right? So great way to get the seller to be your private lender, great way to be able to take a deal, and if nothing else, it saved me from having to borrow that money from a private lender and pay 8 to 10% interest. Again, at the time, I'd done that because out of necessity, because I didn't have the money lined up. It was either wholesale or turn him into my private lender. So that's a way that you can get the seller to be your private lender, a way to get deals and get them done when sometimes they might otherwise fall apart. So don't forget, even when it's a cash price, always try to get some time. And so that today, my friend, is how to turn your seller into your private lender. I'll see you next time.